Hey everyone, it's Misty here. Thanks so much for joining me. Welcome back to the ScrapbookPal.com YouTube channel. So before I get started crafting today, I just wanted to share with you some of the new items from Hero Arts. This may be my most favorite release from Hero Arts ever. So in today's video, I'm going to be focusing on this set. This is the, I believe it's the Happy Birthday number candles. So we're going to be working with the stamp set and the die set, but along with that, they have this set, which is a bunch of balloons. How cute are those? That one's got a little face. Then they've got a couple of really great background stamps. Nice and big. They've got this really cool stencil that's confetti. And then I loved this stamp set. So you get 2 dies and then the stamp. And this is called Birthday Stampin' Cut. So we're gonna be making a birthday card. My brother turned 40 on July 27th. And this is gonna be his birthday card. So I'm gonna turn it over to VoiceOver Misty and we're gonna get started. So we are going to be making a Slimline card today. So I am using the Slimline Essentials dies from Catherine Pooler, and I want a frame. So I am using the outer one and the inner one. So I have a frame where I could put 3 different scenes. And then up at the top of my screen are the stamps that I'm going to be using along with the candle stamps. I had this idea with this My Stay to Celebrate stamp set from My Favorite Things. I wanted the mouse that's blowing out a candle to be blowing out the numbers 4 and 0. And then I brought in a couple of other ones to help create a scene. So I'm going to be stamping them using my Mini Misty in the Gina K Obsidian ink so I can Copic color them. I'm going to go ahead and put a time on the screen. That way, if you're not someone who enjoys coloring, you can fast forward to the end of the card. And if you're someone who does enjoy coloring, you can go ahead and watch me color. So I knew I wanted my color palette to be orange, navy, and green and yellow. So I'm using some pattern paper that you'll see later in the video, and those colors coordinate. So I didn't want gray mice. For some reason, I felt like I wanted a warmed toned mice instead of like a cool toned mice. So I went ahead and used some browns. So I always put the colors on the screen because of the way my lights reflect off of the lid. Sometimes it's hard to see what they say. I've also purchased a new background, so I hope this one works out okay for you guys. Let me know in the comments if it's bothersome, but I wanted something different than purple, so I picked this one, and I think I like the way it's a bit lighter. It's not, that purple was pulling so much of the color, it felt like, out of the projects, so I went with something a bit lighter. So I color darkest to lightest, and I know a lot of people color this the other way, but this is easier for me. I put the darkest where I think it should be, and then I color out from there. For their ears, I am coloring it pink, and then I'm going over it with one of, I believe it's 41, to kind of take it down a little bit because I don't want it to be like a shocking pink. R20 is very, very soft, but it's also, you know, it can be stark in comparison to the other color. And I'm trying to keep the mice really, really soft because while they're going to be an accent on the card, I don't want them to be the main focus of the card. I want, you know, the candles to be the main focus, the sentiment's going to be the main focus, and then the cupcake. So the mice, I tried to keep as simple and as pastel as possible. For the cherry, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my favorite, this is my favorite combination for reds. If I'm coloring red, these are the reds I'm using. R59, R46, and R35. And you're going to see me write down the colors as we go through because if I didn't, I would never remember. But this is my favorite combination of red. If it was a little bit of a bigger space or a bigger stamp, I would also brought in R43. I love to add a pink to my reds. I don't always color with 4 colors, but when I do, I love, and then I'm coloring red. I love, 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 love that combination. So then we're going to move to the cupcake. So I had stamped them originally on this sheet of paper, but you can see at the top that the 0 is touching the other mouse. So, but I messed up on the cupcake on the other sheet of paper. So that's why you see this one. So I'm coloring the wrapper orange, and I'm starting at the bottom with the darkest, and then I'm going over the lines of the liner with the darkest, and then using the other two colors to add some shadow and some shading to really bring out the pleated part of that cupcake liner. For the actual frosting, I debated over this. Initially, I did it orange with a blue wrapper, and I was like, I didn't care for that, and that's why I switched to this. I just want it, again, I don't want it to be a huge focus of the card, but I do want it to stand out just a little bit. So I used two very light browns. I used the darkest green and the darkest blue. So excuse me, YG09 and then B29 for the candle and the little sprinkles on the cupcake. And then I'm using those same blues, or these blues, excuse me, for the stand. Again, I'm going for a color palette that is coordinating with the pattern paper that you'll see a little bit later. So I actually made a card that I thought I was going to use for this video, but I didn't really care for how it turned out, and sometimes that happens. But while I was working on it, I got the idea for this card, and I was like, oh, we're going to make that one. So I think my brother is going to love it. I think you guys are going to love it. It is another Slimline, like I did last time, but sometimes when you want a scene, or if you want, you know, you need a bigger card. So not too long ago, I made a 5x7 card because I needed something bigger. I think in America, we get used to doing an A2 size card because you get 2 out of 1 sheet of cardstock. But sometimes it's fun to play around with other shapes and other sizes of cards just to give yourself a little bit more room to create. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's definitely not something you have to do. So I used my two lightest oranges, or excuse me, my light and my dark orange for the candle flames. I hadn't stamped those, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, they need flames. For the candles, I went ahead and went with a green. I wish I could color this faster in real life. This is sped up at 4%, I believe. So for the green, it's 0, 9, 0, 6, and 11. And I really love how these numbers turned out. This is another go-to combination for green. It's not too deep, but to me it comes out like a fun green, and I really, really love it. You see that I stamped the stool, but I'm going to cut these out by hand instead of using dies because I don't want the white around it. And my stool just kind of fell apart. So in a little bit, I'm going to stamp some of the crates from the stamp set of the mice. So this is the pattern paper that I'm using, and I'm just adding some glue to the back of the frame, putting it on where I want it, and then cutting and trimming around it. I found that to be easiest than trying to figure out the what size I needed to go behind it, and it didn't take very long at all. And these are some of the sheets that were a bit more scrap. I save every single piece of pattern paper. I store my pattern paper in quart-sized freezer bags. That way I have all sorts of sizes. So even though I've used something and it may not fit on a card front, I still keep it. And I've been known to keep the tiniest of pieces, especially if it's a pattern I really, really love. I am using Tombow Mono liquid glue. Here, if you're unfamiliar, Tombow Mono liquid glue is amazing. If you let it dry before adhering anything, it is a removable adhesive. But if you add it immediately and then let it dry, it becomes a permanent adhesive. So if you've never tried it, I would try it. And I love these extra large bottles because I use a lot of glue. So the patterns I chose for this frame, one is like confetti, one is like sprinkles, and I think the other one is just like little stars and dots. I really wanted it to be there. I wanted the colors to be there, but I didn't want the pattern to be the main focus. So I'm going to bring in a piece of white cardstock that I'm cutting down to 7 by 8.5, and then I'm scoring it at 3.5. So this is my favorite Slimline card. And the reason why it is because I don't have to make a whole bunch of cuts with the paper. This will fit in a standard business size envelope. I'll show that to you a bit later. There is a bigger size that you can make, but honestly, like I said, I don't want to have to cut cardstock differently a whole lot. So even though I really enjoy other sizes and shapes, when it comes down to this is it's just so much easier. I decided that I felt like I wanted a blue frame behind the little scene that I've created layer. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out a stitch rectangle from a die from my stash. And then I'm going to adhere that to the back, and then we're going to adhere this flat to the card. So I'd already cut out this happy birthday. So this is from that Stampin' Cut that I showed you earlier, and I cut it out of pattern paper, and I had put some adhesive behind it. So I had done that earlier for the other card that I mentioned. So that is why that's already cut out. So I stamped 2 of the crate images, and I am coloring them with E37 and E35. And again, I'm going to have, I have all of the numbers for you because you can't always see the lids. So I hope that's helpful. I'm not doing a whole lot of shading on this. I colored some spots dark, and now I'm going over it with the light, and then I'm going to cut these out with my scissors as well. Everything that I cut out with my scissors, I went around with a black felt tip marker, a water dye based marker. That way I could get rid of the white. So I'm going to go ahead and play with placement here. I decided that I wanted to pop everything up. So that's what I did. I'm using some adhesive. Again, this will all be linked in the description box down below. Isn't this, oh my gosh, this stamp set is just so cute. And I hadn't gotten a chance to use it since I bought it. And I love that ScrapbookPal carries My Favorite Things because I love My Favorite Things. My Favorite Things is probably one of my favorite companies. I think it's a lot of our favorite companies. I'm just using glue dots to attach the flames to the candle. And then I am adding pop dots to the back of them, and I cut one in half. So each half went behind the flame. That way the flame was also attached. Look at this little mouse blowing, he's so cute. Oh my gosh, I love this card so much. I think my brother is gonna flip over this card. I haven't given it to him yet, but I think he's gonna flip. So I decided that I wanted a darker color behind the happy birthday sentiment. So I'm just cutting that out of some blue cardstock from my stash. And then I am going to glue these together with the top being offset. So what it's going to do is it's going to give a little bit of a drop shadow effect. So you'll be able to see the blue sentiment behind the green one. And there I am just peeling off that Sizzix tape. And it's just a little bit, it's just minor. I've barely scooted it over, but it's there. That way you can see it and it stands out a bit more from the background. Another great thing about having this size, if you don't want, if you want something to hang over the edge just a little bit, it's not going to be a problem because you're going to have a ton of room to be able to do that. And again, you could make it bigger if you wanted to, but again, I just think this size is easier and it just hangs over just a little bit. Not enough to hurt it, just enough to give it a little bit of fun. So I was going back and forth on whether or not I should add the third mouse, and I decided yes, because I prefer things in threes or odd numbers. So he's covering up the A a little bit, but we all know what birthday says. So I'm going to add a couple more glue dots to make sure that's glued down. And then I'm going to bring in a Nuvo shimmer pen. It's not a card by me unless I put some shimmer. And even though this card is for my brother, he'll appreciate it having a little bit of shimmer. So I'm going to bring in a business size envelope to share with you how this fits. That way, if you are interested in this size, you can use it. And again, I cut that down at 7 and 8.5 and scored it at 3.5. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you. Don't forget to subscribe. Find all the links in the description box down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.